Folks, I so hope you're enjoying Know the Cause half as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. It's really a concerted effort on behalf of a dozen people who put the show together. We love teaching you. It was 40 years ago I first learned that when I got back from Vietnam, I was impregnated with a mold. It was on my skin. Little did I know it was inside my body also. And so I followed that trend. Gee, what does mold eat? It's a parasite that lives in my body. Here's what it eats. Don't eat those foods. That's my phase 1 diet. More and more recently, scientists have been coming up with the most amazing research showing that indoor air is more polluted than outdoor air. That doesn't mean you have smog in your home or a lot of dust in your home, but what they're finding is that pollutant is called mold, and it off-gasses a poison called a mycotoxin. So many of us with COPD or lung infections or asthma actually live in beautifully clean homes. They're dusted properly every day, the windows are clean, the drapes are clean, the rugs are clean, but we end up inhaling a mold that might be because the toilet seal broke or because the sink or bathtub overflowed at one time. Once the flooring gets wet, it's difficult to dry. Joining me today, it's going to be different. Joining me today are a couple of experts who have spent the last 20 years of their lives kind of delving into what this indoor pollution is all about, and more importantly, what we can do about it. It's one thing to be active, a whole nother thing to be proactive. So on today's Know the Cause, Chris and Lisa Chase join us and talk about this pollution that all of us live with. Is our immune system strong enough to handle it? This is going to be a great show. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. Well, my wife and I sold a home, 21 years we had it out in the country, some acreage. And we were downsizing. Kids are grown, they got married, everyone's doing well, and we thought we don't need this size home on this acreage anymore. So we start looking for homes. Went out with a very nice realtor, and it was about 3 days later we realized this, folks, and you probably have realized this too. Certainly my guests today do. The realtor had real mold allergies. So before, we'd knock on the door and she'd get the lock and I'd whiff in, because I'm like a mold magnet. Okay, this one seems good. And we go in. I got to tell you, 8 of 10 homes we looked at had mold problems, little mildew or massive, growing in the ceiling and so forth. Today I want to talk a little bit about that with the 2 people that I consider the specialists in this area. Chris Chase and his lovely wife Lisa join us all the way from Atlanta. Thank you for coming in today. Chris and I go back 15 years when Chris was involved. I've been in mold forever. I mean, I'm fascinated by how mold causes illness in human beings. I am just publishing my 2nd paper in an oncology journal that says inhaling mold can mimic cancer, okay? So Chris and I go back 15 years ago. When I first met Chris, he was involved in he was retired. He retired young. He did very well in business. And he cannot, as long as I've known this man, let grass grow under his feet. So a friend of his came over for dinner one night and said, why don't we invest in this little air cleaner? And Chris said, sure, like that little thing can clean air. So he spent a lot of money, remember this? Oh, yeah. Spent a lot of money and went out to Northern California, hired a scientist, a moldologist or a toxicologist, and they put these units in all these homes. So I'm gonna let you pick it up, and then I wanna talk to Lisa about some things also. What did you find?
Well, I knew Doug back when Doug was young enough to be called Dougie. So it's been a long time.
6?
But actually, the story that you're talking about was the inventor of this product came to my house, and we spent all dinner with the guy telling me about how great this technology was and that sort of thing. So at the end of the evening, I said, well, why don't we take it down in my basement? I've got an odor down there that I've not been able to fix, and let's see what happens. So we did. Next morning I got up, my car, the garage is on the lower level, basement level of the house. I went downstairs to go to work, and when I got down into the basement, I realized that odor that I'd been smelling was gone. So that was the first time that I really took the technology that we will talk to you about seriously. From there, before I made an investment, I wanted to know how the technology would work in a living environment. Most products, air treatment products, are tested in labs. I don't know about you, but I don't live in a lab. I live in my home. I work in my office. I wanted to know how the product would perform in that kind of environment, and that's why we took it to a fellow Dr. D. Graham is his name. Took the technology out and let him test it. We got 6 houses. We put the technology in 3 of the houses, and we used 3 of the houses as control. These are houses that were occupied by families with pets, whatever. And what we wanted to do was check the ambient mold level in the houses that had the 3 units in it. What we found at the end of the test is the ambient air level mold contaminants in the 3 houses that had the air technology in it had reduced by over 90%. Reduced by over 90%. We've tested this technology in environments where there's high formaldehyde. There's over 400 formaldehydes, and you have formaldehyde in your home. In the furniture, in your draperies, in your carpets, all of those use formaldehyde. It is effective at breaking down the chemical, the bond that makes up formaldehyde. So when I started doing my research, one of the places that I went was the EPA and you could do the same thing, go to the EPA website.
Environmental Protection Agency.
Right. Do a search on indoor air pollutants, and you'll find that the EPA says that the air inside your house and your office is somewhere between 4 and 100 times more polluted than the air outside. Yet if you think about what you've been educated and heard on the news, we've got a mold alert or a pollen alert or whatever. Folks, the air inside your home, the air that you spend most of your time either in your home or your office, and the air in that environment is more polluted than the time that you spend outside.
Lisa, when did this happen? I remember when I was a little boy, my parents had this little 2-bedroom home, and they'd open the windows when in Los Angeles the wind would blow through. Why now don't we open our windows anymore? Is that what's causing this polluted air?
People think that close the windows, the air's going to be cleaner, we've got the air conditioning running. It's just the opposite. You're basically creating a captive. Your environment is containing yourself, where you're not getting the fresh air to come in. The dust, the pet dander, the mold, dust mites, all that stuff is just basically being recircled in your home.
When Chris said formaldehyde is in my carpet, in my drapes, that now it's sitting there instead of opening up. And folks, if you only knew how common mold problems were. My concern as I continue in the science field, when I read about people who have been diagnosed with cancer, and there are quite a few of them, and then the doctor finally does a little test on this and finds out it's not cancer, it's mold, and the patients are saying, thank you, Jesus. And they treat them with antifungals and they get better. How does it look to a doctor like all these people have lung cancer, right? The machines can't differentiate between carcinoma or a boli of fungus growing in the lungs. We got a problem indoors. You wouldn't read papers like that 50 years ago. Chris, the technology that you picked up on was called photocatalysis. That's a big name, but is it unlike other things you can plug in and clean the air in your home?
Actually, the technology was developed by the University of Florida for the NASA space program, and they have what they call a solar lab in Gainesville, Florida, where they do solar research for NASA. What it is it is a technology that works without a filter. There's no need for a fan. It treats all three major categories of air pollutants. That's microbial, germs, virus, mold, fungus, particulate, that's stuff like pet dander, dust, smoke, pollen, that kind of thing, and chemicals or odors, and that would be like formaldehyde or cooking odors or a pet mistake. You know, it treats all three major categories of air pollutants. So the advantage of this product is not only does it work, but it works in any condition that you have an issue with in your home or office.
And Lisa, did you and Chris experience things like, I mean, you're just thinking now of maybe moving on and buying less acreage and a smaller home. Chris, it's a ball. It really is when you close everything in. Are you going into homes yet? You've been friends' homes. Look, you want to be a good neighbor, but sometimes mildew really causes, I wish it were just sinus problems. I had a paper here from a group called abouthealth.com, fungal infections of your nervous system and the symptoms that can ensue. Some of these molds that Chris and Lisa are talking about make a secondary byproduct that is poisonous. Several of them are neurotoxic, so they affect the nervous system. So you're living in this home half of your life, and you're running from neurologist to neurologist because you have anything from minor blepharospasms to major Parkinson's type symptoms, Alzheimer's type symptoms, which they're now pretty much equating Alzheimer's to mold. And the doctors don't know this, so you just don't know that such a thing exists. You must have walked me backwards. They come back, the doctor comes back and says, well, you got 90% of everything remediated in that home. I probably heard the biggest chick-ching sound I've ever heard in America when you opened your wallet and said to your friend, we're gonna do this, because there wasn't technology. Lisa, do you remember those big air cleaners that had a fan in them, and they were coffee tables back in the 80s? And when your friends came over and smoked, it would suck their smoke down into the fan. I mean, I remember that. That's how old I am. You younger audience won't remember that, but I really remember that, to this little device now that's so compact and so neat you can travel with.
That's so quiet. There's no noise. It's silent, lightweight, portable. Like you said, you can take it into a musty hotel room, cruise ship cabin that doesn't get air to it often enough.
Well, the whole purpose that I wanted to do this segment.
He probably remembers a dial telephone.
Okay.
Did you pick up that, Chris said to Lisa? He probably remembers the dial telephone. No, but I remember one you rang on the wall and you talked. Folks,
ask your neighbor to get off the phone. I gotta make
tell
a call.
your family line. Look, the reason I wanted to do this segment is this. I wanted to do it to make you aware that sometimes when you're running from doctor to doctor to doctor, you have something in your mold. The doctor never comes in and examines your home, your church, your library, your office. They don't do that. They examine you. When you inhale mold, the lung area is very viscous, and this mold sticks to it. So when you exit the home, it goes with you, and it has a life of its own. And it begins growing slowly through the years, and pretty soon you're talking like this and just miserable. And then the next doctor, and then the next doctor. Doctor, it seems to be getting worse. Nobody thinks about the home. Thank you, Chris and Lisa, for thinking about the home. If you'd like more information on their technology, just go to my website, knowthecause.com. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for watching.
A lot of people are still afraid of fat. And I know why that is. Back in the 1980s, there was a mantra that fat makes you fat. And we've since discovered that's really not the case at all. Throughout human history, good fats have been consumed, and all good fats do really, really good things. My 3 favorite good guy fats. Number 1, avocado, a good monounsaturated fat. Number 2 is fish oil. You need these omega-3 fatty acids. And the third one for me is coconut oil. You need some saturates, in my opinion, some good saturated fats, helping to nourish the brain, helping to nourish the hormonal system. And the other thing about coconut oil is that coconut oil is antifungal. Try these 3 and feel better soon.
You know, we don't care here on Know the Cause about low carb, low calorie, no fat foods, but this food has it. Denny introduced me to this some time ago. It's called bok choy. Well, I've eaten it a long time ago in Asian restaurants. You know, usually cook with bok choy, but here's a food with very, very high, over 100% of the RDAs in vitamin A, C, and K, high calcium, and so forth. And look at this thing; it's just dying to, you know, have some kind of fish put on top of it and be eaten.
Well, you know, I hadn't really thought of using it raw, and my friend told me that she loves bok choy in a salad, just raw. So I tried it, and I thought it was really good. Bok choy is real mild. For a cruciferous vegetable, it's really one of the more mild ones. So we'll take a little of each, the green and the crunchy parts, and put them together here.
Denny, you said this segment was going to be an instead of segment.
Right. So instead of salad greens, we're going to use some bok choy, right? Okay. Put a little
Instead of canola oil.
Okay, there you go. Instead of peanut oil,
Yep,
we're going to
exactly.
use a little olive oil. And instead of red wine vinegar, we're going to use a little lemon juice and lime juice.
Normally you'd put some tuna fish on here.
Instead of tuna fish, we're going to use a little wild salmon. This is
yes.
canned, but it's wild caught salmon. Better for you. Plus it has all those great omega-3s, right?
Just a really, really healthy dish. According to Men's Magazine, one of the top 40 superpower foods is bok choy. Yeah, they know what they're talking about.
They do. And instead of, what would we say? Well, instead of some other vegetable, we have sea vegetables. Maybe instead of salt, because it does lend a little salty kind of flavor too. And there you go. You have kind of an Asian.
Denny's presentation, look at that. Isn't that just spectacular? There is so much nutrition in this bowl of food. It never ceases to amaze me how you put phase 1 together with great, great nutrition. But that's what phase 1 is. Yeah. Let's try a little of this.
And I see as you're getting that, I see that's little bones in the salmon. Those are real good for you too. They're real soft.
A lot of calcium.
But they're soft and edible.
See, this would be a whole meal for many people. Some of you say, well, this is the opening salad. This is a whole meal, and
Well, have the rest of it. You know, put the whole thing in.
have 2 of them.
You know.
It's really good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chia seeds were once referred to as Indian running food due to their incredible energizing powers. Chia has a high amount of tryptophan, so it can improve serotonin levels. Think happy, happy. Chia seeds also help with insulin sensitivity and diabetes by balancing your blood sugar.
When I say this, PX90, what does it do for you? You're sitting in their chair just bouncing up and down. PX90, Dr. Fred Pescatore, my good buddy of many, many years, dear friend from New York City, joins me right now. Dr. Pescatore is a well-known doctor, 8 books, a bunch of best-selling New York Times books, a tremendous practice in New York City, and we are humbled that you would sit down with us on Know the Cause. So, Dr. Pescatore, when I say PX90, you're thinking of those workout videos. I try and encourage my audience to work out, no matter how old or how young you are. But PX90 is one end of the spectrum. Is there another end at which walking helps?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's the fitness craze has gotten a little out of control in terms of what the super fit people are doing with CrossFit and SoulCycle and all of these things. But when you look at the studies, and there was just a study that I looked at just the other day, and it looked at mild, moderate activity, mild, moderate, and intense physical activity. And it looked at it in terms of cognitive decline. And then it looked at it in terms of cognitive decline to dementia. And I think we're all worried about, you know, we want to keep our memories intact, right? I mean, as we're all getting older, the population's aging, everybody doesn't want that Alzheimer's disease or that sort of thing. So I thought this study was really cool. And so it showed that mild exercise was better than moderate exercise in terms of preventing you from going from a regular, like you and I, to having to being cognitively impaired. And then when it went from, if you already had some cognitive impairment, mild exercise was best in preventing you from going from impaired to demented. Intense exercise didn't have any improvement over any of those.
For dementia,
any of those.
maybe
for dementia.
cardiovascular?
Maybe for cardiovascular, maybe not. I mean, you have to realize that a lot of people who are older can't and or shouldn't participate in activities where they're getting their heart rate up above a certain amount. So I think, and what the study really showed in mild exercise was walking for 10 minutes, basically mildly walking your dog, and moderate exercise was walking briskly. So it wasn't even that intense.
Working out hard.
Yeah, I mean, I would have made those criteria much higher. But
do you still walk to work or walk home?
I do. I usually walk home.
And it's 3 miles?
3.5 miles. So it's an extra 3.5 miles of activity that I don't normally get, but well, I do normally get it, but it's kind of nice. I mean, it's nice to have that extra, and that's on top of everything else that I do physically for myself every day.
And from a dietary standpoint. Because this was a little boy who was overweight. And I've known Fred for a whole lot of years. You graduated in 86, 87 from medical school. And I guess I met you in the 90s. But I've known you for a lot of years, and I've never known you to be overweight. And it makes sense now when I watch you eat at lunch and when I see what your exercise is. I mean, that adds up. That's 20 miles a week. You know, sometimes you're walking.
I mean, you have to, and I think the key to all of this is what you didn't really say, but it's consistency.
Yeah.
I do this consistently. I don't go on and off. I don't say, okay, well, now's the end point of my diet.
Right.
This is just the way I eat. And I'm very comfortable eating. I'm happy, I'm filled, I'm completely content, because I'd rather look good, be healthy, and feel good, more importantly, than to eat something that I know is poison. I look at pizza and I say, that is poison. I look at pasta, I'm like, I know what that's doing to my arteries. I don't want that anywhere near me. Looking at an ice cream sundae, I can kind of say maybe, but
maybe on Saturdays.
Maybe on Saturdays, but
exactly. Wow, Dr. Fred Pescatore, anything in moderation except moderation itself. Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
I was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam from the start of the Tet Offensive in 1968 through February of 1969. In Southeast Asia, I mean, it was a fungus and mold empire. Everything we did was covered with it. Our clothes were covered with it. We were covered with it. You couldn't wash it off. When I came back, I was covered with a type of skin fungus. I went to the Navy Medical Corps and asked for help, and they weren't able to do anything. The VA said, we don't know what you got. And I went to many doctors who told me that. I don't know how to cure this, is what I heard repeatedly. My son started talking about Doug and his program and fungal infections. I cut back on drinking, which hurt. I cut back on sugar, and I take olive leaf extract at least one day, 5 pills in the morning, 5 in the afternoon. I take cinnamon. I'm going to start taking apple cider vinegar, and one of these days I'm going to find somebody who will prescribe some diflucan or nystatin. But the important thing is to get the sugar out of your diet, get it out of your life. And listen to Doug. What he's telling you is true. It wasn't until I got on phase 1 and really started concentrating on getting rid of sugar that I realized after a while it was gone. I haven't had it for almost 10 years now. And yeah, it was phenomenal.
So detoxing is a really hot topic these days. I really think everyone needs to detox, and food is the perfect way to do it. So what are my 3 favorite detoxing foods? Number 1, lemon and water. I love lemon and water, especially first thing in the morning. The lemon just helps to just flush things out as well as the water. And if you're prone to getting a little puffy in the mornings, it's perfect. Greens are filled with chlorophyll, which is very detoxing to the body. And then my last one, garlic. Garlic is an antifungal, which we know on phase 1 is a potent antifungal that we want to get as much of, but it also stimulates the liver and draws toxins out of the liver. So garlic is perfect one. So we've got our lemon water, our greens, and our garlic, my favorite.
In ancient Greek mythology, the pomegranate represents both life and regeneration. Its use in medicine dates back over 3,000 years. Pomegranates are mentioned in Egyptian papyrus scrolls dating back to 1550 BC. Research has substantiated that pomegranate inhibits cancer by making cancer cells stick together and inhibiting their migration. Since my last report, the antioxidant effects of pomegranate have been shown to reduce the pain of rheumatoid arthritis, lower blood pressure, reverse atherosclerosis, inhibit growth of both yeast and Helicobacter pylori, induce suicide of breast cancer cells, and reduce the risk of cancer metastasizing. It was also shown to act as a SERM, a selective estrogen receptor modulator, stopping harmful environmental estrogens, stimulating breast estrogen receptors. Most excitingly, whole fruit extract of pomegranate also inhibited the growth of pancreatic cancer cells. But the researchers noted that the individual phytochemicals in pomegranate were not as effective as the whole fruit itself. This is more evidence that we should get our nutrients from whole foods, not individual components taken away from their synergistic environment. I get organic pomegranates and put the whole fruit, including the peel and seeds, through my juicer because the studies have shown that there is a different therapeutic effect for the peel, seeds, and juice. I'm sure that if Dr. Seuss was still alive, he'd be writing, "Pomegranate seeds are what everybody needs. Plant a new pomegranate, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air." I took his advice and have them growing all over my farm. I continue to passionately maintain that there is magic in the humble pomegranate.
You know, all we have to do, folks, is go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store and pay $15 for a little mold test plate, right? Set it out, follow the directions, set it out in your home, and see if a lot of colonies form on that plate after a few days. But the question always arises, okay, it did. I've got 25 colony-forming units, gray fuzz growing on that plate. What do we do? Listen, this transcends 2016, 2017. The Lord told Moses and Aaron, right, in the Old Testament, I'm giving you Canaan as your possession. But if I put a spreading mildew in a house in that land, you've got to see the priest. Something fuzzy is growing in that house. Why was that mold so dangerous? The NIV Bible says that it could go on to cause human illness, a fungus that could cause human illness. When you look for an air cleaner, look for something called photocatalysis, right? They're out there, they're available, and you can learn more just by going to my website, knowthecause.com. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.